Alright, I believe we are now live. It's been a while since I've done a live stream, so I figured tonight we'd have some fun, run some trains around. I haven't got anything in particular set, but we'll see. Hopefully some people will join in soon and we'll be able to get some requests in here for different things. Currently I've got this Proto 2000 locomotive, which I think I paid like 20 bucks for or something. Anyways, I did some work on it and it's running like a dream, so I'm very happy with that. Looks like we've got a whole bunch of people joining in right now. Danielle Ramas, welcome. Model Mainline, hello. Nickel Plate Road, how's it going? Canadian Pacific and CN Model Railroading, Jackson. Yeah, a whole bunch of people, my goodness. Run the Hiawatha. I'd be happy to run the Fox Valley one. Can you run a passenger consist? Yeah, we could definitely run the New York Central. We'll let this do a couple more laps, though. I might go get my tripod as well. Hopefully the video quality might be a little bit more even that way. BC Rail. Can't remember if I ever got a coupler on the BC Rail locomotive. Nope. How's the Hershey factory? Very little has been done lately, but the weather is getting cold again, so I suspect there's going to be progress quite soon. But yeah, with the weather still, kind of in that transitioning phase, it's probably going to be a little bit. The second we get some snow on the ground, I'll be down here working on all these other things. Can you run the Union Pacific -9 you got from eBay? I'd love to test it out, but I want to do a video just because not everybody that watches my videos also watches these live streams, so I'm going to save it all. I'd love to, run these things just as much as everybody else might, but for now, we're going to leave them. Hello, SMT. I'm proud of myself because I put a decoder in a Bachmann pancake drive and it's doing excellent. I'm happy to hear that. The only piece of advice I'd have is try to adjust the CVs to work with a 3-pole motor because I've heard that that's important. I don't know how. I wish I could tell you, but yeah, I burned a decoder up using a decoder in a similar drive once, and I think that's why. Can you run the big boy? Yeah, I don't see why not. I'm actually just going to put my phone right here, and I'll go grab my tripod there. That way we can get some better clips. All right, I got exactly what it is I was looking for. So yeah, I think we'll change things up a little bit here. I'll go get the Fox Valley Hiawatha. We'll run that around. Then we'll probably run the New York Central locomotive to haul this. And then I guess we'll follow that up with the big boy. That was a cool camera angle. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Do you have any O-scale trains? Yes, I do. This is my O-scale setup. It's nothing too impressive, but I always wanted to have some O-scale stuff, so it fulfills that role. North American model trains, welcome to the live stream. Safe Haven Valley Railroad. Hey Harrison, thanks for your videos. They got me servicing my own. Oh, that's terrific to hear. It's really great to hear about people digging trains out of their basement and working on them. getting back into the hobby. Just hit up an estate sale. I got about 5 engines and passenger cars. That's terrific. I'll lower this down a little bit. Davey Digger, SMT. Have you ever considered operating any of your accessories for your layout, such as working cranes, coal loaders, or log loaders? I had one at one point. It was a lifelike set to unload stone. Never really worked that well, if I'm honest. It would be a cool thing to add, but I find most of those sets don't work that great. Whoops. Popping the shell off this engine. It's not in perfect shape. Again, it was like $20, which for a proto is not that bad. Train store where I had caught fire and went out of business. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. It snowed this morning in Wisconsin. It's snowing in Wisconsin, my goodness. You know, it's been cool here, but it hasn't been that cold. Something's not right with this engine. This is a very common problem I find with modern steam engines. They have all these wires which go to the decoder, but if you're not careful, they'll end up getting tangled around the outside here, and then they end up causing a lot of derailments. I'm really surprised companies wouldn't put some sort of a piece of tube to hold all the wires together. I guess they just want the trains to be flexible through the corners, but I've seen that happen so many times. Just even a little piece of wire or something to kind of organize the other wires. I don't know. Let's try to figure out something to help fix that issue. Let's try to adjust this a little bit. I got both the Hiawatha's out on the layout here. How's the Blue Goose? I think we fixed that in a previous live stream. Might be able to run it later. I went to my local model railroad shop to get a Bachmann 060, but when they put it on the test track, its motor was burnt. Yeah, if it's one of those old split frames, the gears probably broke. SMT, do you rail fan? I do like to rail fan. It's a lot of fun. There isn't a whole lot in the Ottawa area to rail fan, unfortunately. It's not a very industrial area anymore, so we don't have a lot of trains. But once in a while, we'll go up to Smith Falls, Ontario, where there's still a fair bit of stuff going on, and see some different trains. It's always a lot of fun. It's perfect, too, because they actually have a public parking lot there right beside the train yard, so you can get up close, but you're not trespassing. It's one time, me and my buddies, we went up there. We actually ordered pizza to the train yard. Had a nice luncheon with all the trains going around. It was great. I just picked up an AHM Sealiner on eBay for $15. It runs amazingly. I'm glad to hear that. $15 is exactly what you'd want to pay for something like that. Hey, SMT, can you run the DCC Sound 260? Yeah, I can. There are a couple other engines in the queue. We got the Union Pacific Big Boy and the Dreyfuss Hudson, but yeah, I'll get that down, actually. Alright, well, I got all the trains everybody wants me to run, so we'll bring this around, and I think we'll put the Big Boy on next, just because the Dreyfuss requires its own special passenger cars, so we'll run a couple more trains, and then we'll get around to the Dreyfus and any other trains people might want. How goes it, Harrison? Oh, things are not too bad at the moment. Have you ever repaired any trains with a decoder? Yes, just a few months ago I repaired a Santa Fe locomotive. I think it was a Hobby Town, and somebody had added a decoder to it. Their wiring was really good, actually, but that's an added layer of kind of trouble, I find, because you never know if the decoder is good or not, so it's hard to tell whether the engine's running right or if the decoder's bad, you know? Blue Goose. Okay, we got a lot of requests for that, too. Is there a video of it? There definitely is. It's pretty popular, actually. I'll try to see if I can find it here. If any of your trains caught on fire. None have actually produced flames, but yeah, I've had tons of motors burn out. It does happen. My phone does not seem to want to unlock. Yeah, my phone's not working, but there is a video online of repairing that Santa Fe locomotive. So we'll let this go around for one more lap, and then I think we'll put the big boy on next, followed by the Bachmann. I'll send you a photo of my locomotive I just got today, Harrison, in Messenger. It's pretty cool. If you want to send a message, I'd suggest sending it over Facebook or over Instagram, just because my Facebook is I haven't logged in there in a long time. Hey, SMT, do you think you have enough freight cars in your collection? Yeah, I think so. I mean, if there are a couple special cars, I might add them, but otherwise, I'm very happy with the rolling stock that I have. I've probably got more locomotives than I do cars, but as far as I'm concerned, that's the correct ratio to have. All right. Next up, we've got the Union Pacific Big Boy. I really hope that this thing works okay, because there's been some problems with it lately. My cousin drove one of my Athearn ready-to-roll locomotives off the layout a few years ago and completely knocked the motor out of its mounting. Any suggestions on how to fix it? Yeah, you got two options. The first one is just to buy replacement mounts from Athearn. I think they cost like $7 or something, and they've been making them for years, so that's an option. The other one is just to glue the motor back in place. I've done that on some of my cheaper, older Athearn engines. Just put some hot glue on either side of the motor. And, you know, it's kind of an unprofessional way to repair it, but when you're talking about an engine which is already not really worth anything, it doesn't matter. Especially, it works. I've done that to some engines, and they're still running fine 5 years later. So, yeah, that's the option. Whatever keeps the motor in place. You can get creative. Hello from Colorado. Where's Nerfcat? Nerfcat's upstairs at the moment. I might try to get him down here. Unfortunately, he's not doing very well at the moment. More engines than rolling stock. Yeah, it's fun. I remember seeing one video years ago. I forget who made this. I'm not going to name names. But anyway, the guy was basically saying you'd never want to have too many locomotives. You know, you only need a few engines to have a good layout. And fundamentally, I completely disagree, because the whole point of being in a hobby is to enjoy it, and locomotives are my favorite part of the train. They're the most exciting part. So, yeah, there's probably more locomotives than rolling stock, and a lot of them are not the highest quality, but I don't care. It's fun. You need to run the Microsoft Train Simulator Police Locomotive. I haven't run that in a while. How do you quarter wheels on a steam locomotive? I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you. All I know is that the drivers have to be exactly 90 degrees apart, or else the engine won't run quite right. What scale is that? These are HO scale. So we'll have to see, will the engine make it through that S-curve okay? What brand is your big boy? Mine's Genesis. This is an old Rivarossi model. Although, I might be getting a Genesis one soon, we'll see. I bought a lot on eBay, and I think there was one in there, but I'm not 100% sure. Do you own anything with sound? Probably about 20 sound-equipped locomotives. We're actually about to run one right now. Yeah, I need to adjust the coupler on this thing, because that's a pretty common issue. It keeps disconnecting from its cars. And hopefully this thing won't. Oh, that doesn't look too bad. If I'm not mistaken, this is the only sound-equipped steam locomotive in my collection. Now, I'll see here, it might be set to the factory spec, in which case it would be number 3. Doesn't seem to be responding to that, so we're gonna try 60, 18. It's still not doing anything. I wonder if this thing has a decoder problem. Go into the CV settings and set 8 to 8. Yeah, that would be a good idea. Unfortunately, I have to switch it over to a programming track to reboot the decoder. Let's try. Yeah, I don't think this thing's gonna work. I'm gonna have to reset the CVs at some point, but I won't bore everybody with that. So instead, we'll put the Blue Goose on and try to haul the cars with that. I don't know if it's gonna be strong enough, but it should be okay. Maybe it's the motor. I don't think that the engine has any mechanical problems, because it's definitely getting power and it's brand new. I've never really done anything with it, so if I were to take a bet, either the CVs are not reading right, or I set the locomotive to some number which I can't remember. I don't know why I would have set it to something different than 6018, but who knows? Might have been when I still had my Bachmann command center, which only went up to 9 or something like that. Whoops. So I got a fine tender to haul this whole train here. What do all of you think? Is this thing gonna hook up to the cars on itself, or are we gonna have to do something? All right then. Can you run an Amtrak unit? Might be able to. Got a few more things in the queue here. Does Tyco have a Grand Trunk unit? I'm pretty sure they did. I think they had a Century 430. Where's the coupler on this? Can't see what's going on here. Ohio model trains. Have you ever been to Cedar Point? What's your opinion on it? I've never been to Cedar Point. No, I have been to Ohio before. I went to Cincinnati and more particularly Forest Park, but that's about as close as I've been. I don't know where Cedar Point is. Oh boy, here we go. S&T tender. It's fine. Alright, let's see if this Rarest engine's even strong enough to pull these cars. Uh-oh. The bucket of bolts has done it again. We've spun the drive shaft. So that's not going to be running. Okay, there we go. Yeah, we're just going to put the other engine on. All the rivet counters at the club will be upset at Harrison. Rivet counters would never have a reason to watch this channel anyway. I mean, most of the stuff I work on is old Tycos and things like that. I do occasionally work on some higher end stuff. It's not that I have anything against it, but realism is certainly never the main objective. I don't have a problem, by the way, with anybody who wants to collect the higher end stuff. You know, if you want to buy realistic stuff, that's fine. But there are some people that believe that's the only way to do it. All right, let's see if this is strong enough to pull these cars. No, just barely. It's struggling. So one thing about the Riverossies, as much as I like them, their pulling capacity is not good. Wheel slip must be on. Put a small switcher to help. That's a good idea. I wonder if I have any New York Central equipment. Oh, I've got a good idea here. Let's get a little bit more New York Central stuff on here. I'm sure that will help us out. Fantastic. Never mind, that's an A. how do you embed those tracks for the street running portion? The rails themselves are just glued directly to the table using hot glue, and then that's covered over with drywall plaster and then just painted over. It works okay. You just need to be really careful how well you gauge the track. What do you think the rarest engine you own is? It's probably the Hiawatha right here. Those are not very common engines. And as a result, they actually go for quite a bit on eBay. I think the Hudson's still having trouble. Yeah, I mean, the River Rossi engine's it's just geared to go a lot faster than the Bachmann. So it's actually not a great thing to do. It's quite hard on the drive, but it'll be fine for a little while, especially since these engines are so light, the wheels can just spin free, so you're not going to burn out the motor too easily. eBay's been an adventure and a half so far. Yeah, eBay is definitely a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to buying trains. In fact, if you've seen my latest video, I'll point out that, you know, I bought a huge lot and a whole bunch of the locomotives turned out to be dummy engines. And that doesn't even include people who, you know, are basically running a scam on eBay and shipping and all this other stuff. So you can make off with good deals. You just have to be very selective and cautious with what you buy. And ultimately there will be, you know, one place where you're just wrong place at the wrong time and you got a bit of a bad deal. There's a River Rossi Hiawatha on eBay for $5,000. Yeah, they go very high on there. A River Rossi Hiawatha is not worth $5,000. It's probably worth more like $6,000, but or not 6,600, I should say, but they'll go on eBay for much higher prices just because that's eBay. Excuse me, Mr. Harrison, will you ever get any Thomas tank engine stock? Probably not. I'm a huge fan of Thomas the Tank Engine. I loved the show as a kid, but I don't really feel the need to buy anything for my layout involving that. Yeah, 99 cents for an item, but $24 shipping. Yeah, it's always the shipping you have to look out for. I've seen engines being sold for $10 and they've got $200 shipping. It's like, I don't care how fast it is, something's not quite right there. Do you use frog snot? I haven't used that on any of my locomotives, but next time they have it at my local hobby store, I want to buy it because a lot of people ask me about it, and it might really help with a lot of my older engines. So yeah, that's sort of the deal with that. So I've basically ran everything that was requested earlier, so if anybody has some new requests, put them in the comments, and whatever one I see first, I'll run it. As a matter of fact, right here, can you please run the DD40X Centennial number 6922 in another Union Pacific locomotive? Well, we'll run the Centennial, so I think that will be good. I haven't run that one in a while, actually. Now, the engine that was requested was actually 6922. That's one of these old Bachmann ones, not the modern one I have, and these are not really good engines for pulling cars, so I don't even know if this is going to work, but I guess we'll try it. The problem is, Bachmann in the 80s was still using their pancake motors to power even a great big engine. Like, why they didn't make this a dual-motored locomotive is beyond me. Still have to service this thing too. But if it doesn't work, we'll just run the modern one. Run the clapped out Tyco CN. I'd love to run that thing. Why not? We'll see if the bucket of bolts can pull this train after this one also tries. It's possible the wheels on this have also separated. Yeah, this is not going to work. Let's run the modern one. Yeah, no wonder this thing wouldn't go on the track. Look at the wheels. Like, look how far apart they are. Earlier in the conversation, I find that you want a locomotive that is realistic enough for a train show, but economical enough where it's affordable. Yeah, I find an Athearn Blue Box engine, if you decorate it, can usually fulfill both those needs. If not, a Cato engine or a maybe a Walters engine, you know, kind of mid-range stuff. Especially for a train show, or because if you're going to like a model railroading club or your own collection, you know, and you really want a high-end locomotive, it's not that big a concern. But I probably wouldn't want to bring one of my higher-end engines, a bunch of them, to a train show, just because theft is a pretty common issue at train shows, believe it or not. I remember this one guy telling me he loses about $600 of stock a year. So that's pretty crazy. I have brought my Hiawatha to a train show once, and also my HCW engine, which are both pretty valuable, but I've kept a very close eye on them. Don't let them go out of sight. I'm actually not a fan of blue boxes. Not everybody is. I mean, they're not the most realistic out there, that's for sure, and they can be very loud, kind of rough, but if you want something that's just cheap and reliable, gets the job done well, I find they're usually very good engines for that. Couplers are too low. Yeah, sometimes you have to play around with the heights on that. Hey, SMT, what are your thoughts on Sam's Trains? I'm a fan of Sam's Trains. I think he makes pretty good videos. He's quite meticulous with what he does. Some of his content's not really like my style. Like, just the way it's edited and stuff, it's not really my taste. But I've got a lot of respect for his channel. I do think he makes good content. It's been so long since I've joined a live stream. I can't believe how big the channel's gotten since I subscribed 4 years ago when you're at 800 subscribers. I remember, Nathan. Glad you've stuck around. Mid-90s Atlas locomotives are great locomotives too. Harrison, they're powered by Cato drives. I'd believe it. The old Atlas engines, I find they're total tanks, which is in line with Cato engines being very good quality as well. It always amuses me when Sam's Trains reviews American products and ends up blown away. Yeah, it's kind of funny when you see American locomotives on his channel. Anyways, I think we'll run this around for a couple more laps, and then we'll switch up for some other stuff. We got some requests to run an Amtrak unit. I have one which I think would do very well at this particular task. Thoughts on the Texas 210-4? Okay, if Bachmann's made a new Texas 210-4 and it's an engine you really want, go ahead and buy it. But I would not buy the older 210-4 Texas chugger locomotives from Bachmann, because they have the split chassis design with nylon gears, and they're a nightmare to work on, and they break very easily. So that's my thoughts on it. All the old Bachmann stuff, if you can find it cheap, buy it, but otherwise avoid it as much as possible because it's not well built. So we got the Microsoft Train Simulator locomotive and an Amtrak locomotive. Well, I've picked that one. So that should be all right. The Rarest Steamer, have you managed to get any of your British locomotives working? Nothing so far. I got a lot on my plate right now with projects, but I do want to start working on those. Are you a fan of any sports? Not really. I'm not huge into sports. With hockey a little bit, but that's mostly just because I live in Canada. Being to like a live hockey game though, that's different. It's way more exciting than watching it on TV. More requests for the clapped out Tyco Cyan. Yes, I almost forgot. Let me go grab that. I don't know where I put that engine into storage. I guess we'll get this one rolling and we'll go hunt for that one. As I found your channel this year, I started to like trains, then I got an N-scale Bachmann-Thomas train. It is so slow, I didn't expect it. I'm kind of surprised. I've always found the Bachmann N-scale stuff to go pretty quick. But it's awesome to hear about you getting into trains. I've heard about, I get a lot of stories from people saying they're getting into the hobby because they already like trains, or they're getting back into the hobby, but it's very rare to hear about somebody who wasn't into trains before starting off, so it's nice to hear. Clapped out Tyco Cyan. I'm looking for it, folks. I don't know where it is, though. I suspect it's here. Yeah, it is. This shelf right here is kind of where I put in a lot of my rougher locomotives. There are a few high-end ones here and there, but for the most part, this is where all the kind of junkier engines go. It's not that I don't like them, by the way. It's gonna fail. I'm counting on it. If you find it, run it. Oh, I don't doubt it's definitely not gonna run well, but I think it will run. I have some false sense of confidence in it. Run the P42 DC. Okay, that comment went right by. Let's see if I can locate it. Can't seem to find it. Anyways, I'll read this other comment. Hello SMT, I hope you're having a wonderful afternoon. How's the video with eBay locomotives coming along? All the UPSD40 I choose from RTR is pretty nice. I haven't started filming the testing video, so let's kind of stay with that. It looks like we've got a super chat from King of the Pond. Take $10 and buy a train with half of it, save the other half for the future. Thank you so much. What DCC controller would you recommend? Personally, I have a Digitrax DCS51. It's been a fine controller, but I'm not going to necessarily say that's the controller you should get just because I haven't worked with a lot of other controllers, so I don't really have anything to compare to. So we'll see what everybody in the comments thinks. If you were out to go get a new controller today, what would you pick? There's definitely people in here who know more about this than I do, so I'll let them speak their minds. False sense of confidence, just like the Acela. Haha, very funny. Do you have a doodle bug? I do, actually. I'm gonna run the Amtrak locomotive first. Apparently, I busted the rear coupler on this. And the front one, too. I don't remember doing that, but yeah, I guess we'll just run that on its own. But anyways, let's try to run one of the worst locomotives in my collection. This is something I paid like $7 for it. Horrible condition. Did fix it up a little bit, but this was having a lot of issues in the video where I did all the repairs. So anyways. This is to all the people that said it wouldn't run. She's doing it. So the main problem I was having with this thing is that the gears are so stripped out on it, it jumps out of gear. So right now it is running, but you kind of have to kick it into gear. See, it just got in gear, and that's why it's picking up speed. She's a runner. Yeah, exactly. Is it running? No doubt. Look, it's moving under its own power. It's such a junky engine. I love it, but it's just had a lot of miles put on it. It's hopping out of gear again. It might have given up the ghost just there. Let's try putting it in reverse. It might go better the other way. Yeah, no problems in reverse. It goes right into gear. It's not slipping or anything. That's quite the locomotive. Yeah, I should bring this to the train club. I think the other guys would be jealous. I'd love it. I'd show up there. Everyone else would be like, hey, I just got the new Rapido Royal Hudson. And another person would be like, I just got the Broadway Limited whatchamacallit. And, you know, then I'd show up there with this and be like, well, that's nothing. Look at what I've got. 1976 Tyco with completely stripped gears. Yeah. You know, I shouldn't rat on it, though, because it's still running after 45 some years, and there was somebody at some point who might have got this as a Christmas gift or a birthday gift as a kid and ran the snot out of it, and it's still going. So, as much as it's a pretty bad engine, I will give Tyco some credit for that. What province do you live in? I live in the Belle province of Quebec. SMT, do you know Supersonic 1629? That's my new account, just letting you know. Okay, I appreciate that. Alright, so on the DCC controller debate, David Z to G scale says Digitrax if you want the tabletop box controller, or NCE if you want a handheld DCC controller. Both start at around 200 American dollars. I got one of those for $10. Super running and detailed. The problem with the Power Torques is no matter how much you do, it's like they were not great engines when they left the factory. You know, they were really being sold as like toys, so they're not going to be perfect. But again, it comes back to the whole point. Like, if you just want something to play around with, they're fine. So I guess for the Amtrak engine, we'll just push the cars around backwards. Don't let Dirty Dan hear that they're toys. I mean, it's kind of a gray area because there's no definitive definition of what's a toy and what's a model. Like, it's sort of vague, but if you were to classify them, I wouldn't call a Rapido engine a toy. A Tyco engine's certainly closer to that. It looks like we just had a pretty interesting little derailment over here. Wow. So these two cars derailed probably on that switch right here, and then the tension went right up through all these cars, and then the force of the locomotive pushed the last ones right off the track into the fence. kind of epic. Do you service viewer locomotives? I have one nobody seems to help me with. It's my dad's. I just want to see it run again. I really wish I could help. I was taking repairs from viewers for a while, but to tell you the truth, the shipping logistics were turning into a real nightmare because people would send me the locomotives, but they would usually classify them as a repair job, so that would cause issues at customs. And then there would be fees due, but I couldn't pay the fees because the billing address wouldn't match my actual bank because it's a post office box. So I actually ended up having a lot of issues with that. It happened more than once, so I stopped that because I was spending hours a week trying to fix those issues. Plus, I'm also just paranoid working with something as, you know, it's like if I open up an engine, really screw it up, it doesn't matter, it's my own property, I can throw it in the garbage as far as I'm concerned. But you know, if I'm working with somebody's engine and it's sentimental, you know, that's a different story. Have you ever fixed N-scale engines? I've done a few before. They're a little trickier than HO engines, but same concept. Some may say they're just toys for children to play with. Others say it's accurate scale models or real life things. Yeah, everyone's got a different opinion. Anyways, I'm not sure what we should run next. First suggestion that comes up, I'll take it. Canadian National number 6060. Yeah, definitely run that. The Y2N. Everybody wants me to run the CSX Y2N. I don't know what that is. Yeah, this thing still runs great. Everyone's asking me to run a Y2X. I don't know what that is. YN2 is a paint scheme with yellow, gray, and blue painted CSX. Okay, yeah, I can run that. Tyco must be one of the greatest creators of what-if locomotives in history. I just love the wild paint jobs they did on these units. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I like about Tyco is, you know, put the realism aside, they probably made some of the most real, you know, interesting models that have ever been made. Like, I can't think of any other manufacturers made anything like they ever did in HO scale. Maybe with the exception of Bachmann in the 80s, you know, they did make some pretty funky locomotives, but there's nothing like the Golden Eagle and the Silver Streak, Canadiana, Spirit of 76. Like, they just made so many interesting locomotives. No manufacturer today would create what they did. Everything was funky in the 80s. I'd argue the 70s too, it seems like. A lot of Tyco's models were originally built then. Tyco had a lot of fantasy paint schemes. Yeah, they sure did. Hey, SMT, is there such a thing as a two or one pole motor? One pole motors do exist, not with HO scale locomotives though. They're AC motors. You can have a one pole AC motor, I believe. There are two pole model train motors. They were built by Flashman, maybe? I don't know. They were very short-lived and they only existed in Europe. But that's a very uncommon configuration. I've never encountered one myself. Most motors are made in a uneven configuration, so you'll have 3-pole, 5-pole, 7-pole, and I think it's just because it's easier for the motors to start turning that way. But there apparently were 2-pole motors. I'd love to see one in person. I guess we'll disconnect this. I didn't notice, but these cars, I guess, came undone and hit the back of our own train, unfortunately. Tyco coming around the mountain. It's one of the few Tyco engines I don't have in my collection, but I bought a lot a couple months ago. It's in one of those boxes down there, and I'm pretty sure it contains one, so I'm looking forward to adding that to the collection. What's your opinion on Atlas locomotives? I have Atlas locomotives since last year. It's been dropped twice, lost a couplers, yet it still runs. I find they're very good engines. I don't know if I'd say they're as reliable as like blue boxes, but I've never had a bad experience with one. They've been very reliable. They're quite quiet. According to a lot of people too, maybe all of them, at least the ones from the 90s for a while, were made by Cato, which has had a history of building very good locomotives. So I like their products. Now, Csx Locomotive. I think this is what everybody wants. Which do you like, scale trains or blue box? I mean, blue box engines are one of my favorite. Athearn overall is one of my favorite brands, but to tell you the truth, I couldn't really say for scale trains because I've never owned a scale trains engine before, so I can't really speak. I've heard a lot of good things about them. A lot of the people I know in the community that own scale train stuff seem to like them, so I doubt they'd be bad. I just personally don't know what they're like. Currently rebuilding my train set. Should I use Atlas track or Cato? Cato track will probably work a little bit better, but it's also way more expensive. So if you just want to build something, I pretty much have used Atlas my whole life, and it's been decent. A lot of people I know seem to prefer Pemco. Hey SMT, I remember how you told me to build my layout however I wanted to. My layout plans are absolutely amazing because of your advice, so I thank you. Well, I'm very happy to hear that. I'm planning on making a series where I talk about building your first layout, and I've been just writing down thing after thing about like how you even just start planning your very first layout, because I find that that's a mistake that a lot of people make, and it's something I wish I had heard earlier on, which is that, you know, don't aim necessarily to make the most realistic layout on the planet, you know, just build what you like. Figuring out what you want is important too, because just because you might know what you want for a couple things, you know, you need to get inspiration from somewhere. And these couplers are not working well. There we go. run an RS3. Probably do that. Hey SMT, it's been a while since I joined. I have a question for you. Do you run DC or DCC? I actually use both. They're both really good systems. DCC is obviously a lot better if you want to run trains in a more realistic way. You have way more control over the locomotive. You can control the lights, the sounds. You can run multiple engines at the same time in different directions individually, and that will obviously work a lot better. As for just running trains around a layout, DC is very good. So I have a double pole switch, which connects to both controllers, one on either side. Just switch between them depending on what I'm doing. Hey SMT, why don't you run trains on the mountain section of your layout? Because there are only so many locomotives I have which can actually handle that layout. The corners are very tight, and there's a lot of different grades. I can run some engines on there if people want to see, but there's usually a lot of derailments. SMT, do you like I and ER or the D and RG? I don't know either of those railroads, so I couldn't say. Can you please run the transformer switcher, please? Because I like to watch the tiny speed train. Okay, yeah, we'll run that. I'll get a RS3 as well. Hey, I'm new to the hobby, but I was wondering, would the NCE25 controller work with Bachmann track? Thank you for helping me out and getting my layout started. Any controller can work with any track. It's just how you wire it. So you might have to literally, cut the wires open and connect each one. There's 2 wires. So with Bachmann track, you've got that red wire which connects to the track. There are 2 wires coming out of that. So you'd have to cut them. But yeah, there are ways to make that work. But like I said, any controller will. So just keep that in mind. Don't pick a specific controller because you think it will work with your track. Any controller can work with any track. Unless it's AC, but that's a whole other thing. So I'm gonna see. Alrighty, so I found the Transformers engine. I'll just try to find an RS3 now. Alright, got the locomotives that have been requested. I'm planning on getting my Safe Train Siemens Chargers Type 3 with electric bell. Nice. I think those are the new Bachmann ones, right? I'm gonna start buying and selling model trains, SMT. Might be a fun thing to do, flipping trains. I personally haven't been too successful with my eBay stuff, because there have been some engines I bought off eBay and I've tried to sell those off. Sometimes I can sell them to my hobby shop, but they don't always want them, just depending on the condition. Hey SMT, okay, the comments are just flying by here. Hey SMT, what do you make your roads out of? I'm building a layout and this stumps me. It's not too complicated. I just put down drywall plaster and then I sand that just to get it kind of to the shape I want, and then I throw paint over it. The biggest thing when you're painting your roads, though, to make them look realistic is you have to use a matte finish, because if you use a gloss finish, your roads will be really shiny and it just doesn't look right. So you need to find a gray color which is really dull. So that's what I did. A new thing I'm trying out, though, is actually just using foam from the dollar store. You know, those sheets you use for school projects and stuff. I've been buying those. And I do the same thing. I put a bit of drywall plaster, just add some texture, paint over that with a dull coat. The only thing I've noticed is that you have to be really careful gluing it down, otherwise it seems to lift up. So that's what's happened here. But I did that with these roads. When you add a bit of foliage on the sides, it actually doesn't look too bad. So we'll see. If I can perfect this technique, I'll make a video on it. Yeah, what was I supposed to do next? I think run the RS3. I've been in the hobby for 2 years, custom building special kinds of rolling stock you can't buy. Next month I'll be selling them at my local show. That's really cool. Yeah, people might really want that too, because when people want to mimic a certain railroad, especially like a short line, a lot of cases manufacturers will not have specifically what they want. So if you're a person with enough talent to actually build these things or customize them, you know, there's definitely someone out there willing to pay good money for it. It's crazy the extremes people go to really get down what they want, and I understand that. I have a couple locomotives myself which are specific to a certain railway, and I've modified them to make them exactly what I want. I don't know if I have it around here, but I actually built a, well, I didn't build, but I custom painted a model for my local railroad. Anyway, here's the RS3 everybody wanted. The previous video that you made with the massive lot, do you plan on getting it out soon? I'm gonna try. I'll probably this week I'll make a video about it and test it out. It shouldn't take too long production-wise. Testing videos are usually not super difficult to make. I have to decide which engines I actually want to give away though, because I also have some other engines in storage which I don't need anymore, so we'll see. Hopefully I can put together a decent giveaway and somebody will get some nice locomotives. What are your opinions on the DNRG WK27 locomotives? I don't know anything about them. One of my older Athearn engines has a clicking noise. It either means that the gears are cracked, and I've never had that happen on an Athearn, mind you, but the other thing that can happen is if a small piece of ballast gets inside the drive, it gets caught up in the gear, and then as the gear turns around, it can cause a clicking noise. So if you're comfortable, Athearn engines are not the most difficult to work on, so you could open it up yourself and try to fix that. Or if you have a local hobby shop, they might be able to fix that too. So just something to keep in mind, because if it's just as simple as getting a piece of ballast out of your gearbox, it should stop doing that. This engine is almost strong enough to pull this train, but not quite. Do you have a Rapido bus? Because I think I saw one. I don't know. I can't remember if this was made by Rapido or not. No, it was made by German company Bosch. I don't know. Question, what's your eBay so I can check it out? I don't have a eBay account. Well, at least not a sales page. How's the factory? Not too bad. I was saying in the beginning of the live stream there has not been very much progress on it lately, but I think once the snow starts to fly, which I'm guessing is going to be pretty soon, probably start working on it. I bought an extremely rare USNS teardrop crossing bell off of eBay a few days ago. That's pretty exciting. My history teacher assigned us to make a diorama of a specific railroad, so I went all out and made a massive HO scale mountain diorama with the Rio Grande Railroad. Well, that must have been a fun project. I had a similar project when I was in school. We had to make a diorama which featured forestry. I think it was, how did they phrase it? Man-made structures and industry. So I decided to build a mountain layout just like that with a train, because it was forestry, had industry, man-made section. Didn't work too bad. The wick comb doesn't want to start. Well, I guess this bucket of bolts is not going to save the day. I'll have to find something else. Okay, so now we've got the Bachmann engine freed up, but the 040 is stuck. What's your least favorite manufacturer? Probably Bachmann. It's not to say that they've never made any products I don't like. The Bachmann Centennial, this engine right here has been a dream. It was an affordable engine, and it's never given me any trouble. There was one time I think some ballast might have got caught up in the gearbox, but that's really the only thing that's happened to it, and I wouldn't consider that the manufacturer's fault. So they've made some good products. It's not all bad, but fundamentally I find their prices have just gone up a lot more than they're worth. I find their prices are going up quicker than they're building their engines in better ways. They're just not super high quality for what they price them at. And the reliability track record is not perfect for certain things I've had. That's one little victory. Yeah, Bachmann's such a funny manufacturer in the community. You know, I see some people in the comments and they're like, oh, yeah, I hate Bachmann. I bought this engine when I was a kid. It was a piece of junk. And then you've got the Bachmann fans who are like, I don't understand why you're always bashing Bachmann. I've had Bachmann engines my whole life and they've been flawless. So I guess it's just luck of the draw. And with a company like Bachmann, I could see that because I've had some engines which have been very good and I've had some other ones which have given me trouble. So maybe there are some people which were just on the lucky side and they got all the good ones, and you know, others have ended up with the ones which were just duds from the factory. That would be my guess, but I just find it pretty funny that it's so mixed like that. Chris Danielle, Bachmann has a sketchy history, difficult to overcome. Yeah, I'm sort of surprised Bachmann didn't reinvent the brand as something else. That would seem like a logical thing to do considering the types of engines they were creating back in like the 1980s, because those really were not good quality engines, which is exactly what Lifelike did. That's why they came out with Proto, and so that they didn't have to drag the brand behind them. But Lifelike was very smart in my opinion. When Lifelike came out with Proto, they put the boxes had two levels. The top level had the shell, the bottom level had the drive. And I think that the reason they did that was because the people at Lifelike, they knew that they had a bad reputation in the model railroading community. So I think they let people look at the drive that way. Their opinions wouldn't be that, oh, it's another junky Lifelike engine. They would look at the drive and be like, wow, that actually looks pretty decent. So I'll give Lifelike props. They were smart. They gave themselves a new brand to start off their higher end locomotives, and they actually showed people what was inside them. I'm very surprised Bachmann didn't do the same at the time. Hey SMT, I'm new to model railroading, but I don't really know where to start with the space I have, which is 4x8, which I'm planning to expand to become a 6x8. What should I plan to do? Thanks. All right, so if you only have a 6x8 of space, my advice would be make the layout at least 4 feet wide. Like 4 feet is not a bad width for a layout, but if you can make it 4.5 feet, that's way better, because you want to, in my opinion, put wider curves on your layout. It will just make for smoother operations. So that'd be the first piece of advice I'd have. The second one I'd have for a small layout is make it multi-level. So add risers and things like that, because like this over here, it's not a massive layout really if you trim off the sides, but since it has multiple layers, it actually gives the illusion it's a bigger layout. Plus you have more track in the same area. And yeah, the third is just try to make every piece of space count, because it will pay off. This right here is a 4x6 actually, and you can see there's a ton in it. I'd advise putting 2 tracks as well. It's always a good, entertaining feature, I find. Anyone hear about Y-scale? It's so tiny. No, I've never heard of Y-scale before. I've heard of Z-scale and T-scale. That's about all I know. Switch to end and they'll fit quite a bit more in a little space. That's always a important thing to consider. Definitely, if you want to build like a big freight yard, end scale is probably the way to go, because you can build a full-on freight yard, not a lot of space. Trying to do that in HO, it does kind of limit you. The club I am is an HO scale version of the Central Oregon. I am now 3 years into model railroading and only now just learning how to do scenic and coding DCC trains. There definitely is a real learning curve, and a thing for beginners to know is, like, don't be ashamed of that. Nobody's going to start an expert. Everybody, when they began the hobby, was in your shoes at one point, so, you know, it's going to take... I've been in the hobby for... I don't know, 15, 16 years. I was like 5 years old when I started, and I'm still learning tons of stuff every day. I wouldn't even consider myself an expert in comparison to some of the stuff other people make. Like, to me right here, like, this is not too bad a scene, but in comparison to some of the stuff, like, I'm a part of a couple train clubs, compared to some of the stuff they can make, it would make this look like a kid's toy. Like, it's crazy. Harrison, what's the tightest radius of curves you have? I actually have 15 radius curves coming into the freight yard. I would highly advise against it, because you're not going to be able to run anything bigger than like an F7 through those. My advice to people building a layout would be to go either 22 or really aim for 24 radius. If you have the room to make your layout a little bit wider, go with 24 radius. You'll be able to run bigger locomotives. You're going to have less derailments. Even for smaller engines, everything's just going to perform better. So, you know, if you don't have the space, 18s will get by, but they're not good. Somebody wanted me to run the track geometry car. Chris Danielle, do you use any track planning tools or templates, or do you just eyeball it? Pretty much. I do. There is a bit of planning. Like, I'll take a piece of paper and draw out what I want. So, like, when I was building this layout right here, there were a bunch of things I was aiming for. I wanted a multi-level layout. I wanted 2 sets of tracks. So I had to draw it all out just to figure out how it was all going to connect together. But other than that, yeah, I was just making this up as I go along. And it can work. You're going to run into headaches for sure, though. Sometimes have to undo mistakes. I find sometimes what can happen, not just with model railroading, but any project, is that there are so many little details that people get kind of overwhelmed, and then they never end up doing anything. And it's like, well, why would you even bother then? So sometimes you just have to start putting things together and see what works. The layout is looking really good. Have you worked on it recently? Somewhat recently. This has all been built like within the last month. I'm really impressed with how this little geometry car turned out. I was laughing though. It might have been Chris Danielle who's in the chat. I can't entirely remember, but somebody was referencing a review done by some model railway magazine in the 80s when these came out. And somebody said these were such a piece of junk that they weren't even worth the $12 they were selling them for. And I mean, I would disagree. I think for $12 this is a fine engine, but it's such a harsh review. It's kind of funny. SMT, what's your favorite project to date? Favorite project to date? That's a good question. Yeah, gee, I really don't know. It's kind of hard to tell because there have been some projects I've done which have been really good, as in like the results are satisfying, but they were a real pain in the neck to put together. So I don't know, probably the construction of this layout right here, because this has been way easier than a lot of the stuff I do, because it doesn't have to be a specific way. I really love the results in my Hershey factory. I'm very happy with how it's coming along, but to tell you all the truth, building this thing, it's very tedious because everything has to be measured very carefully, and I've made mistakes and had to go back and redo stuff, and it's super expensive. So yeah, probably the layout. Can you run the Spirit of 76 Shark Nose? Did I get one of those? I thought I got a sea liner. It's got to be on this shelf somewhere because that's there. I don't know where I put that engine. I don't see it on the projects shelf. SMT, are these shelves the complete collection, or do you have locomotives stashed around the basement? I do have well, I've got a bin down there, but no, these shelves complete the collection. There's a box right now somewhere down here too of locomotives, which I intend to give away, some of which I'm going to be adding to the giveaway, which is coming up soon. But no, that's pretty much it. What I don't understand though is that, like, this is one of the engines I bought, but I can't find the other one. I bought them both at the same time. Oh, right, hey, it's here. I found it. I need to organize all of this. It's starting to get a bit ridiculous, I find. Did you get the Athearn John Deere locomotive going? Not yet. Can you run your Flashman switcher, see how many cars you can get it to pull? Yeah, sure. We'll run this one first, though. Over half of my collection uses pancake motors. They've actually been reliable for me. They're very simple drives, so with just less things to go wrong, yeah, they're not, I think, as bad as everybody says. Are they going to be the best performing engines out there? Definitely not. But if you just want some engines to run, pancake motors are not the worst thing ever. Especially, too, I know the Bachmann, Lifelike, and Tyco pancake motors, those were not high-end motors. But the River Rossi ones, those things are bulletproof. They run forever. I forget what his first name is, but Mr. Rossi was very particular about his motors. Come on, Spirit of 76. And this thing is not having it. Okay, so the Spirit of 76 has gotten a bit jammed up, so I think we're going to have to send in another Spirit of 76 locomotive. I don't know which one would be best. Probably this one. I feel like this is probably the most fitting American engine to go save the day, because I'm pretty sure that the Mantua Tyco Spirit of 76 locomotives were actually made in America, so this is truly a patriotic locomotive. I know this one looks like junk, but it's actually still got a pretty good drive in it. Do any of the Athearn special units or Athearn 6? I don't think I do. Uh-oh. That was close. There's only one Spirit of 76 locomotive by Tyco. The others are just imitations. Well, I wonder what they called these. Probably had a different name. It's not the Spirit of 76, it's the Spirit of America. Yeah, that's what we'll call it. Oh, it looks like we've got another super chat from Found and Fixed Model Kits. Great stream here. Great stream here is a little eBay shady deal money. Oh, thanks. I got funding for the next buying shady model trains off eBay. What's the worst engine in your collection? I don't know. Let's go through, see if we can find some duds. They definitely exist in here. Even an engine like this, though, which is really clapped out, I wouldn't consider junky, because, again, the drive is still very healthy in that. But I do have some ones. I mean, we were already running this thing, which might be the junkiest engine in my collection, but I've got a few other buckets of bolts. This one's kind of bad. Let's see if I can find the old lifelike, though. Yeah, I think it might be this engine. Because this thing, it's just had the snot run right out of it. It's a mid-70s lifelike. I don't know what the original owners were thinking with this thing, but they decided to cut off the stairs. They decided to cut off the entire back of the locomotive. They decided to remove one of the vents. Yeah, they took all the handrails off of it. They did a lot of really bad things with this engine. But this is the funny part, like through cleaning and lubricating it, this engine actually doesn't run that bad. I was gonna say that as it fails to move. Yeah, despite being a piece of junk, it can actually haul this thing around pretty well. Just look at it go. No, we're losing the traction. It's only got four-wheel drive. Like, this is a terrible engine. It's in really bad condition, but I can't help but love that despite all the stuff that everybody's thrown at this thing, it still runs mint. I think I can. Yeah, pretty much. Let's see, have we got any other really junky engines? This one's kind of bad. It's not the worst. This is a blue box engine. I paid like $3 for or something. I don't know. It was in a big lot. It's in pretty bad shape, but I kind of keep it around just to test track and stuff out. Yeah, this thing runs to mint. It's an Ather and it's perfect. It looks horrible though. Chassis system, please. If you could only run one railroad, what would it be? Probably Canadian National. This thing is not a fantastic engine. We could definitely run that. I should do a contest out there. I'll find an engine in my collection, a bad one, right? You know, something you can pay a whole lot for. And I'll host some sort of a contest, and it will be where everybody has to find the worst engine in their collection, but it has to run. And then we'll have a vote. And whoever has the junkiest running engine out there will actually win another junky locomotive. I think that could be a lot of fun. What's up? Welcome to the live stream BILM line. Yeah, I don't know if this one's gonna start. This was actually sent in from a viewer. Yeah, so as you can tell, this is not a very healthy engine. I can't remember if I serviced this engine or not, but it was not particularly well built. Some ex-communist product right here, so sure even when this thing was new, it probably was not flawless. Gearing is not that bad, but yeah, that's a really weird looking motor. Now we got this Pemco engine. This is the one I paid $1 for. Now, let me remind you all that the guy who I bought this thing from, he looked at this thing. He's like, this engine's a piece of junk. Never going to run again. Well, for $1, I was more than happy to take that challenge up. You know, it's not very quiet or anything, but it's very healthy. Hello from Sudbury. Oh, welcome to the live stream. Can you run one of your Atlas engines? Yeah, sure. I think I have a Sioux line engine, which would be a pretty good candidate. Yes, there it is. So, on the argument that the old Athearn engines are really tough, this is an engine which I bought for $10 at a train show about a year ago. As far as I can remember, I never did anything to service it. Just brought it home, put it on the track. It's not like the best looking engine out there, you know, it leaves a lot to be desired detail-wise. But, like, in terms of running, like, you can't even hear it. It's totally silent. It's definitely quieter than the Athearn ones. I'll give them credit for that. So, yeah. $10 locomotive here, folks. Runs beautifully. Harrison, do you have any geared locking locomotives like the Shea or the Climax? I can't say I do, no. Do you have any Wisconsin Central locomotives? I don't think so. I bought a Tyco Canadiana for $5. It was a piece of junk. I repowered it, and the person I bought it from was overjoyed to see it running again. That's a good story. That's something I have seen done with some of the old Tyco locomotives, especially if you want to add DCC or something. Just for the sake of nostalgia. It sounded like a cow. Yeah, at the higher speeds, the motor does make a bit of noise, but like it's perfect. The rolling stock's more loud than it at about half speed, so still very impressive for a dirt cheap engine. Just gonna grab some water. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm now back. Hey SMT, do you still have the Acela Express that fell on the floor? I saw it in a video you made where you fixed it, but I haven't seen it run in a long time. Yeah, it's still running too. I'll go find it. I wonder if you could use a fiberglass pencil to clean track. Yep, you could use a fiberglass pencil to clean track. Just be careful of the little fibers. Oh, there we go. It's funny, it had a little bit of trouble starting. Got any Conrail locomotives you can run? Yeah, I've got a few. You run the River Aussie Hiawatha. It's totally cool if you don't want to run it. Yeah, I love taking it out, but generally I only run that on occasions just because it is a very delicate engine. So usually before I take it out, lubricate the drive up, just make sure it's all in good order. So there's the Acela, still alive and well by some miracle. Do you have any Berkshires? I have two Berks, neither of them run though. Just gonna put some of these engines back on the shelf, but I'll return with a couple of requested ones. Alright, so as requested, I got a chassis system locomotive and a Conrail locomotive. Pretty nice one, as a matter of fact. If you see this, can you run the T1? And the Acela is a Bachmann. Go figure, it takes a fight and keeps on riding the rails. Yeah, it is impressive that it survived the fall. What wasn't impressive is when I got that thing brand new right from the box, it didn't run for some reason. So something got buggered up in the shipping or maybe right from the factory. So I will give Bachmann credit. They did build an engine which survived the fall, but yeah, it was weird how it didn't run when I very first got it. I guess we'll run the chassis system first. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. Now, this thing is probably not strong enough to even pull this train, but... yeah, maybe not. Yeah, well, we'll just let it run on, we'll let it run on the mountain layout, actually. Some people were asking for that earlier. I don't know if it's going to be able to handle these curves, but let's give it a chance. I'm pretty sure this engine was sent in from David Z to G scale. I know he's in here, so thanks again. Yeah, it's not... I'm going to end up falling on my own layout here. Come on, Tycho. think that's about as much as we get out of that. Hey SMD, what is a steam locomotive you'd like to see run again other than the Hiawatha? The one which pulled, yeah, either Canadian Pacific, I think it's 1850, the one which pulled the Royal Train in 1936, or the Canadian National Locomotive which pulled the Royal in 1936. I don't know the number of that one, but either of those would be wonderful engines to see run again. Or 1201. Tyco locomotives have 2 speeds, stop and full, and pretty much. I'm trying to get the headlights to work. I can't seem to get them to start for some reason. Oh well. This thing is so loud. It's awesome. Would any of the big chain hobby stores maybe have a consignment section? I'm not really expecting it, but maybe. Probably not from a big chain. I mean, I know some department stores and things like that, they have a general consignment section where they'll sell like damaged products and stuff. So maybe a place like Hobby Lobby might carry some things, but other than that, probably not. Rails of Ontario, I fully disagree with all the negative stuff about Tyco Power Torques and the MU2 motors from them. Have given me no trouble. Yeah, I mean, again, they are fun engines to play around with, and maybe you've been lucky with them, but I find that they're probably the most unreliable drive out there. I mean, I work on a lot of locomotives on this channel, and most of the time I'm working on Tycos, and that's usually just because they're prone to having a lot of problems. You know, the motors spat oil out onto the commutator, which was a bad design. The gears ended up chafing together after a certain point. They were very flawed drives, and they weren't well built. I've had some with gears that still have flashing on them from the factory, despite being made, 35 years ago. So I don't hate Tyco, but I couldn't say with a straight face that they made super high quality locomotives. The older drives with the 5 poles, those were pretty good though. There's Nerf Cat here. I might see if we can get him down here. He's been having a really rough week though. He's got sick. Yeah, I'm pretty worried about him. If you are the original owner and take good care of locomotives, they should run forever. Yeah, but some of them, especially the old Tycos, they had defects right from the factory. There was one engine, it wouldn't run right. It was like stuttering. And it was because there was flashing. Like, they just were not very well-built locomotives even when they were brand new. Some of them probably ran okay, but it's just how they were built. I would suspect for any modern locomotives, like an Athearn or anything, yeah, you probably are not going to have any problem with it, but... Well, the only main problem with the power torques is the stupid pivot gear that always slips off the motor. Yeah, that's a very common problem with those. In the 1980s, Tyco replaced the big gear with a nylon gear that wore out less easily. Delrin gear, I think. That would make sense. That is one benefit of nylon, is that it's a low resistance material, so I guess it will last a very long time. The only issue with the nylon gears is they crack sometimes. How old is Nerf Cat now? I think he's about 15. I got him in the summer of 2009, but we don't know how old he was before that. He was definitely a young kitty, but he's yeah, he's not a young cat anymore, so pretty weird. But yeah, it was really odd. He was doing fine, like up until like a week ago. He was totally fine, and then he just wouldn't wake up. Like, he was sleeping like crazy, and he wasn't eating or anything, so we were really worried about him. So we hauled him off to the vet, and they're currently doing some tests, but we got him back, and when he came back, my God, like, yeah, he was really doing bad. He wouldn't eat anything. Give him any food we could, and he just stopped eating, so I didn't even think he was going to make it till Sunday. And then miraculously the other day he actually started eating food again, so he's doing a little bit better, but we don't know why that happened, so yeah, I'm pretty concerned about him. Anyways, I don't know what everybody wants to see run next. We could definitely still run a few more requests before it gets too late. Really hope it gets better. Yeah, you and me both. What do you recommend for moving wheel oxidization? Either a track bright or a fiberglass pencil, even really high grit sandpaper, like 1000 grit or 2000 grit sandpaper should work pretty well. You just don't want to use anything too abrasive. Can you please run the 50th anniversary MRC locomotive? I would love to run those engines, but I was saying earlier in the live stream, I don't want to run any of those just because not everybody who watches these live streams watches my videos, so we'll do a video and then everybody can watch it. We all support you in Nerf Cat. Well, I appreciate it. How's the British lock going? My sister is a cat that's something like 21, still going strong. Cats can live for a very long time. Yeah, and it's not impossible for... my mom had a cat who like lived for like 19 years or something like that. They can live an awful long time, but you know, it might not be an age thing. He might have eaten something he shouldn't have. We found out lilies are apparently very poisonous to cats. We didn't have any in the house, but we had some a couple months ago, and we noticed there was bits of it, so it's possible he ate that. An SD45. These are on a Via train. Not sure. So you could run this one. T1. I should definitely run that. I said I would earlier, actually. Any tips on starting your first layout? Yes, figure out what you want. Figure out how much space you have. Figure out what your budget is. And then make a great big list, write everything down, go through model railroading magazines, go online, anywhere you can find inspiration, and write down every single thing you want. And then try to see, based on budget and space, how much of that you can fit in, and start building your layout. How many locomotives do you have? Somewhere in the ballpark of 400 or 500. Be careful, your cat's getting up in years. Yeah, absolutely. I don't take it for granted. I don't take his well-being for granted, that's for sure. But it's in very good care. The vet we have is quite high-end. Quite a high-end price too, but we don't really worry about that kind of thing when you're dealing with your beloved family companion. I'll go see if I can find the little rascal. Uh-oh. Looks like this stopped while I was gone. It's at the top of the stairs. Let's see if I can convince him to come down here. Cat! You run the GO train sometime. Sure, I think we'll finish off the live stream with the T1. I've got another locomotive going here, and then I'll see if I can convince Nerf Cat to come down here. There we are. Ah, here he is. So, like, judging by how he's acting right now, it's really not obvious that there's really anything wrong with him. He has improved a little bit, but still not quite himself. Cat. I don't really want him eating treats off the floor down here just because it's so dirty, but he's doing okay. Why name him Nerf Cat? Because Nerf used to have a whole brand of dog toys called Nerf Cat, or Nerf Dog. And I always thought it'd be funny if they made a brand called Nerf Cat, because it'd be ridiculous having frisbees and baseballs for a cat. What breed is your cat? He's a Russian Blue. Put more of these on the stairs for him. There you go, cat. Nerf Cat still looks pretty healthy. Yeah, he's quite medicated right now, though, so he's got a lot keeping him going. Yeah, hopefully he'll get better. My cat's the same breed as Nerf Cat. Yeah, they're pretty interesting because they actually it's a Russian Blue because their fur, if you see it in the sunlight, it actually has a very bluish kind of tinge to it. Cat. Do you run any of the big boy, and do you have any big boy engines to run? Yeah, we ran one earlier in the live stream. They usually have an evil stare to him. I mean, usually he's got a kind look, but yeah, he does have this one sometimes look where he really does look like he wants to murder someone. All my cats wreck my trains. Sent my IC Death Star hopper off the table. Unfortunately, not too much damage. Sorry to hear that. Nerf Cat's jumped up on the table a couple times. Somehow he hasn't broken anything. What are your opinions on Mantua Classics Locomotive? I have one that's an absolute tank. They're pretty tough. Cat. Look. Does the crossing work? It does light up. It doesn't flash, though. I guess Nerf Cat's really careful around his surroundings. There's a video online of him walking all over the layout, and yeah, it's amazing how he can move over stuff. And he'll knock over a couple trees, but generally he's quite a careful kitty with that stuff. 2 hours now. Drugs are good. No, they're not, but they're making him feel a lot better. It's a Walters car, Harrison. Pretty darn durable pieces of equipment. They can take a real beating. Yeah. SMT is getting lost in the comments. Yeah, no doubt. Hello, SMT Mainline. How are you and your family doing? Also, can you run the Golden Eagle, please, buddy? Yeah, sure. Pop goes the Tycho. I sure hope not. fun fact, only one GO Transit F unit survives today in Florida because it was bought by Tri-Rail and is number 904. They're still using an F unit? Wow. It's amazing, these F units, you know, I think the original F units came out in something like the 1940s. The fact that in the 21st century they're still running them. Did you catch the Canadian Pacific Tail NATO unit? Didn't believe it was in Smith Falls. I didn't see it in person, but I did have a lot of people sending me pictures of that. Do you have any Walters locomotives you can run? Yes. Not as requested, there's the Golden Eagle. I think I'm going to get these cars off the main line. That way we can run some different locomotives like the T1. Oh, I was afraid that would happen. Are you gonna do anything special for Halloween on the channel? I don't have any ideas, but if somebody has a suggestion, I might consider it. Did anyone hear that Canadian Pacific is running the holiday train this year? Wow, well, I hope so. I've really missed that. It's always been a tradition for me and my dad. Whoops, looks like that's broken. Yeah, it's always been a tradition. I think I was like 9 years old or something. My dad found out about the holiday train, so we went to go see it. There's this place in Ottawa called Golden Palace. It's a little Chinese food restaurant. It's got the best egg rolls on the planet. So what we do is we go up, get some Golden Palace egg rolls, drive down to Smith Falls, having a nice, wonderful dinner, and yeah, then we go see the holiday train when it's -30 outside. It's always a lot of fun. Rail fan at Smith Falls, coming by any chance? Probably if, well, certainly be there for the holiday train. Unless something comes up. I wasn't planning on heading out for any rail fanning, but well, my buddy Liam there, he was suggesting that we go to Smith Falls, so maybe we will. I don't know. Always the last minute things. Pop Goes the Weasel theme plays with the Tyco. I think it's gonna start. Controller Packer suggests add a scary section to your layout, something smaller average for Halloween. That's a cool idea. I think what I really should do for Halloween is try to carve Thomas the Tank Engine into a pumpkin. Hey, the Tyco started. Used to be a tradition in my family to go ride the Royal George Santa Express, but it stopped in 2020 after you know what. Yeah. Well, hopefully they'll bring that back. I go to a Chinese restaurant in Hinsdale once in a while. It's right by the BNSF Chicago sub, which is really convenient. Yeah, I don't know. There's something about getting a meal together and going out rail fanning. I was mentioning earlier in the live stream that we've ordered up a pizza to the train yard before. That was pretty fun. I think I've been completely one-upped though, because another channel in the Ottawa area, M&M Rails, he and his buddies went rail fanning. His buddy had a truck, so he actually drove his barbecue to the rail yard, and they had a barbecue luncheon at the train yard. I mean, I got to admit, I'm kind of jealous of that. Having an entire barbecue at a rail yard. I mean, how much better can life get than that? Do you have a bunny? No, I've never had a rabbit. I had a dog for 2 days, but got reclaimed, so unfortunately that was the end of that. I've been saying I'm going to run the T1. I still intend to run the T1, but I think we'll still run some other stuff because still got a little bit of time. I usually see McDonald's when rail fanning nowhere near the barbecue. It doesn't matter. It's the idea. Did you know that Canadian National 6060 Bullinos is used to do rail tours? Don't know if it still does. I think they're rebuilding 6060. This other channel I watch, DC Trains Forever, I think it's called. I can't remember, but he's always wanted to basically see that locomotive in person, and it's in some storage building right now. It's not open to the public, and he somehow was able to, I guess, meet with people who work there and go and see it. So I think they're rebuilding it. I used to always go to McDonald's as a child where I could watch trains from the window. I saw so many ex-Santa Fe locomotives from that restaurant. Similar experience when I was a kid here in Gatineau. We've got the Quebec and Gatineau Railway, and along one of the main roads there was a Pizza Hut, and the windows faced right out on the railroad. So I remember as a kid being in there having a pizza, and sometimes a tanker train would go by delivering chemicals to the E.B. Eddy plant. So that was always the best thing. It's like, you're telling me I can have a Pizza Hut luncheon and see some trains. It's pretty cool. Gee, I don't know what we should run now. Would be fantastic to see one of the Lionel switchers run. Sorry for the spam. Sure. Don't know if this one actually works or not, but I guess we'll try that, and maybe the ATC uranium one if I still have got that. I have to do some digging here. I thought it was being stored around here somewhere on one of these levels. Unless I put it up on this shelf. I don't know where the ATC one went, but what matters is I've got the other one, so we'll try to run that. Please run a Walters. Sure. Oh yeah, that one runs groovy. It's actually a really good runner. It's super quiet. Just looking for that Walters engine I bought off Amazon about a year ago. Yeah, unfortunately I can't seem to locate the Walters engine. Let's run this one instead. Last May, I went to a restaurant in Kansas City where your food was served by model trains. It was called Fritz, and believe it or not, the food was amazing. That's pretty cool. I'd love to go to one of those restaurants. I've seen a couple of them online. Unfortunately, there's none in the area, but sure it'd be a fun experience. What's your favorite obscure railroad? It was the HCW, which was, well, it was actually my local tourist railroad. And what was interesting about it is that they were running entirely Swedish stock. They had a Swedish steam engine, a Swedish diesel, and Swedish actual passenger cars. And yeah, they ran it as a Canadian tourist operation for about 20 years, which was pretty funny having a Swedish train running in Canada, but it was a good operation. Used to run by my grandfather. Used to have a house right by the tracks down in Chelsea, and used to go up there every weekend with my dad. They'd drink coffee, and then we'd hear the whistle. The train went really slow, so you'd have plenty of time to get down to the tracks and watch it go by. It was always a good time. Railroad's no longer in operation anymore, unfortunately. It would be possible to run the Swedish train. I have it all in storage. We'll run the diesel. I'm very impressed with how well this Lionel is running. I've never seen one of these switchers run quite so smooth. Whoops. Okay, so the shell does not hold on to the drive very well, but luckily these old engines are so tough. That didn't do a thing to it. All right, here, this is my HCW diesel. Again, this was a Swedish locomotive. It was actually, at least the engine was built by GM. So it actually has got a lot of American in it. But yeah, fundamentally it is a Swedish engine, which was imported to Canada and then repainted. This was originally red, and they gave it this kind of unusual cream and green kind of color scheme, which matched the whole train. So I had to repaint it specially just to get it to match up. But in any case, here it is today. Your videos have inspired me to service my old locomotives and build my own 4x8 setup. That's terrific to hear. It's a wonderful hobby to be part of. It's really, nothing's like having something that you can just unwind with. With all the stuff going on in the world these days. And, you know, people's lives too, work can be stressful and everything. It's really nice just having something that you can just start working on and take your mind off of everything else. Our layout was a COVID project. A lot of people apparently got into the hobby throughout the 2021 season. All of the local hobby shops were saying it was like a gold rush, basically, the amount of people getting into the hobby. And it was funny too. One of the shops in Toronto, one of the channels, Go Veer, Go Home, Chris, he's friends with someone who owns a shop, basically, and what he was saying is you'd have people turning up with their collection from the 80s, and they would be like, hey, I'm looking to reboot my collection, you know, has anything changed? And it's like, yeah, we've got a lot of new stuff, and would explain what DCC was. So, you know, it wasn't a good time, but at least that was a good outcome. A lot of people getting back into the hobby. It was certainly a good distraction myself during that time. Do you have any Thomas and Friends characters? I can't say I do. I've loved trains since I was born, but 2020 is when we built our layout and really got into HO scale. Hey SMT, what ballast do you use? I just use Woodland Scenic, so I'll show you the blend. It's fine It's gray blend, fine ballast. Make sure you get the fine kind. I find the other ones don't look as good. Yeah, so I was gonna say, anyways, I figure we'll get the steam engine out because I haven't run that engine since like May or something like that. I don't know. COVID really increased the subscribers, Harrison. It's hard to tell whether or not, I mean, it might have had a positive influence, but the channel was growing, like it was really growing like towards the end of 2019 before all of that started. So it's hard to say whether or not the fact it really grew after that was related or coincidence. I don't know much about the turbo train, but what I can say is the tilting mechanisms was a faulty nightmare to the turbo. Charger was a disaster too. Trains with active tilt, as far as I've heard, have been known for causing a lot of issues. There was in Canada after the they came out with those, the Bombardier had the LRC locomotives, and those had active tilt, and that was really supposed to help with Canadian rails, which are meant for freight traffic, lots of tight corners. It seemed like a good idea, but apparently the tilting mechanisms were so faulty that the train would go into a corner, it would tilt, and then it wouldn't tilt back out, and you'd have a train which was stuck at, you know, like slanted sideways. My grandfather, he worked for Transport Canada in the 1980s when the LRCs were in their heyday, basically, and he hated those locomotives. He used to call them light, rapid, crappy. I never got to ask him why, but that's according to my dad. He'd be like, "Oh, I have to work with the light, rapid, crappies again," which I always found funny. I'm personally a big fan of the LRC locomotives. I think they were a very cool concept, but yeah, everybody I've talked to who actually worked with the real things didn't seem to like them all that much. Of course, there was the APTs in England, which apparently would make people sick because the tilting would set off their inner ear. So, yeah, active tilt's been a mixed bag. They were successful with the Pendolinos, though. So I guess you couldn't call it entirely a failure. What is the best size for an HO scale layout? I would say if you've got the space, build as big a layout as you can, because obviously the more space you have, the more you can actually put on it. But if you've got limitations, a 4x8 is what most people go with. Very common size, but my advice to most people is if you can, make it a 4.5x8, because that extra half a foot will really help with how much you can add, especially adding wider curves, which is something I highly recommend. Something I wish I had done. So anyways, here is my finest locomotive in the entire collection. It's a Swedish E2, built in the early 1900s, I believe, and these were part of the, they used them for a while, and then instead of scrapping them, the Swedish government actually hid them away in caves as part of the Cold War steam reserve. So the idea was that Sweden was using a lot of electric locomotives at the time, and if something happened during the war and their electrical systems got knocked out, they had all these steam engines hidden away and they could start using those again. And then once the Cold War came to an end, they didn't need these anymore, so they started selling them off. And at that same time, a Canadian company was actually looking to set up a tourist operation here in Gatineau. And they couldn't buy a Canadian steam engine because most of them needed to be rebuilt and certified, which costs $1 million. So it was way cheaper just to buy an off-the-shelf Swedish locomotive, which was already certified, ready to go. And they imported the entire train from Sweden and then repainted it just to look more Canadian, and they gave it a Canadian whistle and a Canadian bell, just so it would blend in with the area a little better. But this was the train I grew up with, so for sentimental reasons, I quite like it. You should run the Acela again. Hopefully nothing bad happens. That's alright. I think we'll just run this. And then the T4. It's also starting to get late, I can tell, because the house is beginning to get quiet. So the way I've got this whole thing set up is that the diesel does most of the heavy lifting. When I bought this engine, it hardly ran, but it runs a lot harder than the steam engine. So most of the time, the diesel is actually pushing the steam engine. The steam engine just adds a little bit of extra power at the end if the train is too long. But the idea is that the diesel was scratch built, and they built it using Athearn Blue Box parts, which are very readily available. But the steam engine has very rare parts, which are super expensive. So I don't really care if the diesel is always over revving a little bit, if it burns out a motor or it burns, if it strips its gears or whatever. It doesn't really matter. I've got replacements for as long as I'll be around. But the steam engine might be another story. SMT, what part of Canada are you from? I'm from Gatineau, Quebec. The Swedish Steamer looks like it has its cylinders inside of the drive, the wheels underneath the boiler, something like some British steamers. Yeah, that's exactly how they built it. I love the valve gear mechanisms, but I have to say it does look very neat, just having the drivers on the sides. I understand how sentimental this train is to you. My favorite tourist railroad went bankrupt in 2019. I'm now looking to create my own model of the railroad's train. Yeah, I don't know. The first train you grow up around, I find, you know, it's what you're exposed to. And in this case, this was the first train I actually ever saw. So it's kind of special. And just the fact it went by my grandfather's house, I saw it countless times as a kid. My other grandfather, my one on my mom's side, also lived by the tracks, funny enough, at the time. So I had two grandparents living beside. I wouldn't see the train as much with them because they lived a lot further from the tracks, so we'd have to run through the forest to go watch it. But I remember, I think it was in maybe 2010. It was one of the last years the railroad ran. And we went down, we watched it go by. I was thrilled because I just loved seeing the train. And he told me, he's like, you know, you're very lucky to get to see that, a steam engine. You know, there's not very many of those around. So always remember that. And I remember at the time kind of arrogantly thinking, well, yeah, nobody uses steam engines anymore. This one's a tourist train. Like, it's not going anywhere. If it was, it would already be gone. Well, funny enough, a year later, the tracks washed out, and that was the end of operations for it. So he was absolutely right. But it was still a great thing to grow up around. Does the Pennsylvania locomotive by your trolley work? It certainly does. This was I think this was my dad's very first steam locomotive. As a kid, I accidentally burned the motor out of it. I'll run it in a second here. It goes a lot faster than it should. I'll let this go around for one or two more laps, and then we'll take it off or something else. My favorite tourist railroad is the Credit Valley Explorer, now defunct Oregonville-Brampton Railway Tourist, went bust in 2018. The line followed in 2021. Harrison, I have a question. Oh, well, fire away. what's the full story behind the Acela? I got it as a gift from my grandparents when I was 13, and right out of the box it didn't run. And then what ended up happening was, it was like a year later, we were having a Halloween party down here, and a kid just out of nowhere, I don't know why, picked the engine off my shelf and threw it at a wall. She was mad at another kid. She threw it at another kid. That's what had happened. And it smashed into a million pieces, and I put it back together. And then a couple years later, it was, I think it was like the first day of 2019 or something like that, and I had just been gifted this brand new controller. I was all excited, super powerful, and I was like fooling around with it, running it super fast around the corners. Lo and behold, it flew right off the layout and hit the floor again. So that's now the second time it's been destroyed. So it hasn't had an easy go at things. Controller Packers Harrison, yeah, he's not doing super well. Anyways, I think we'll get something else on the line here. My first train set was the Bachmann digital command controller. Both locomotives broke within the first year. That's unfortunate. These plates are hard to find if yours is missing. Got to steal one off another loco. What plates are those? How's the big boy running? It's okay. Dear God, if it makes you feel better, I wrecked Bachmann J-Class due to poor track. Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like too much of a victim of that, because I was doing something stupid and I knew it, and I decided to keep going anyway, and then I paid the price for it and learned my lesson the hard way. So that's how it goes sometimes. But the engine still runs, so I haven't really lost anything. Yeah, the Pennsylvania. Yeah, so the story with this is that my dad had his collection when he was a kid. He had this locomotive, and I was over at my grandparents' house, and we were kind of like rebuilding my dad's old collection on his table and everything, and we pulled this engine out, and we bought a new controller. And me and my grandfather, you know, I was like 7 years old, and he didn't know anything about model trains, so he wired up the controller the wrong way. And unfortunately, that was to the AC side, and the motor just burned right up. It got stuck. It got all stuck. So I eventually was, once I got a little more skilled, able to rebuild it. But it's a 3-volt motor. The controller's like 20 volts. So yeah, not great. Ban the bot. There's a Tinder bot. There's been a lot of those lately. I find every time I upload a new video, there's these weird bots, and they're advertising these very questionable, unsavory websites. So I always ban them, but they're every new video, there they are again. Well, it's derailed again, but whatever. As a child, I dropped at least half of my collection off the table. I've gotten most of them running, but the others are beyond saving. Yeah, it's a good thing about, you know, the old Tycos and stuff like that. Despite how flawed they were, they are robust. There's just not as much to break on them, so for youngsters, they were great engines. All of my Athearn engines survived my childhood. Well, even this Walters engines survived it. The Mahano engines did. I dropped all of those engines many times. Even my Lifelike engine withstood it. I mean, oh no, it threw a rod. Oh crap! I'm gonna have to go get a. I have do it a tool like a magnet and try to find that screw. That's gonna be a nightmare. Is the box on top besides the Home Depot a P.O. box load? Yes, I think it is. I don't know. We've got, I think all of those are P.O. boxes, except the one on the very top is something I bought off eBay. Have you ever been to Strasbourg 90? I have not. That's the Freedom train. I haven't made any progress on that. Yeah, this is my first engine. I think I see mine. Oh, I'm glad to hear it. Just look at this thing. What a bucket of bolts. I mean, it's missing a lot of parts. A lot of fun running this as a kid. It's not looking so great. But you give it power and it still runs. Not Gavin. Hi, Harrison. How are you doing? Not bad. How are you? Isaac, do you think you'd be able to fix my Athearn? I can't, but if you want any advice, I'd be happy to give it to you. Athearns are pretty easy engines usually to get going again. Can you run your Tyco Amtrak GG1? I'm getting one off eBay that runs. I'm going to use it to pull my Bachmann Amfleets. Oh, I hope it works okay. I will try to run mine, but you have to be careful with the power torques. They're interesting engines. I know lifelike engines were never good quality, but I have some sense of pride the fact that this thing withstood everything. Put that one back in a safe storage. Yeah, so the Tyco GG1. I wonder if I'll have one which will actually start. I'm pretty sure I own 2 of these. One's not working. I think this one is the good one, but it's got a very tired motor in it. I don't know if it's gonna work. Yay, moderators unite. Would you be able to send your advice? Yeah, if you need advice fixing a model, just email scrumptiousmodeltrains@gmail.com and I'll try to help you as best I can. All right, here's the Tyco GG1. Have you seen the $3,000 Rarest Hiawatha? Yes, I certainly have. It's been linked to me about 1 million times. Rarest Hiawathas are not worth $3,000. Yeah, that one's been on there for years. Nobody's ever going to buy it. Which lot's the one you... I don't know. Let's go through these. This one, I bought this box off eBay. I'm pretty sure this is a P.O. box thing. This one might be eBay too. I can't remember. Do you still have AC locomotives? I sure do, yeah. Actually, I bought an AC train set. I don't know if I'm going to be able to use this thing. I'll show all of you this, but it's a secret because it hasn't ever been shown on the channel before, and it's going to be part of a future video. But I was at a train show a couple months ago. It wasn't really a train show, more like a rail-related event, and the prices at this thing were just horrible. I couldn't believe it. You know, they wanted a mint for everything, but I was just about to leave, and then there was this British guy, and he asked to see all these train sets he had. And the Trix Twin Railway. Well, I've worked with those before. That's what my grandmother had. And I noticed he had this entire train set. All AC. It's got the original controller. So I made him an offer for $100. He ended up taking it. So I got this whole train set for $100. Probably overpaid, but these are very hard to find in Canada. If I wanted to buy one off of eBay with the shipping and everything else, it would definitely be worth that. So I bought it. But I'm hoping the fact that I've got the track and the controller means that I can start fixing up my grandmother's old trains, because she'd be really thrilled to see her old Scotsman run again and a couple others. So I thought this would be pretty good, but joke's kind of on me, because this is not a plug-in controller. You plug this into another controller, and that's how you feed power to it. So I'm going to try to use maybe a Lionel controller, but I'm going to have to make sure it's safe. So we'll see. But anyway, that's a video for the future. What kind of music do you listen to? Mostly 80s rock. I find the 80s really had some of the best music up there. My mind can't be changed on that. 80s rock, 80s pop. It's not that the 70s, 60s, and the 90s, and even the 2000s didn't have any good songs. They all did. I just found the 80s has the best stuff. This thing is, I think, starting to run a little bit better. Just warming up. What's the building in front of you? It's my 1 in 87th scale model of the Hershey's factory, which they used to have in Smith Falls, Ontario. They closed that in 2008, but this was kind of cool because, of course, all you Pennsylvania folks will know Hershey's was started in Pennsylvania, and for the longest, I think 50 years, that was the only factory they had. And then they, in the early 60s, decided they wanted to open some more facilities, particularly one for the Canadian market. So Hershey executives from Pennsylvania were driving around looking for a place to find a spot to build their new plant. And at that same time, the Smith Falls Chamber of Commerce was outside trying to find cars with foreign license plates to sell them on the town, you know, people who were looking to move. So they stopped a car with a Pennsylvania license plate, and it contained the occupants of the Hershey Company, and they were able to sell them on the town. And the town had good railway access. It had the dairy farms, everything they needed. So they ended up building their second Hershey's factory in Smith Falls. So this was their first Canadian facility. David Z to G scale. Amazing how you youngsters love music that was popular before you were born. Yeah, I like the music that was made, before I was around. I like the music made then more than I like what's made now. I'm not a total cynic on modern music. I do think that there are songs that come out today which are pretty good, but nothing holds a torch to the songs from, in my opinion, the 80s. Some stuff from the 70s and 60s too. 80s rock, meaning the Smiths, REM, Husker Du, Meat Puppets. Some of those bands, definitely the Smiths and REM. I haven't heard some of those other bands, but definitely Aerosmith and Kiss, The Rat. I'd have to go through. My memory is not the greatest with this stuff, but made a playlist. I think it has like 150 rock songs from the 80s. Let's see here. Yeah, Guns N' Roses, Rush, April Wine, AC/DC. Yeah, all the classics. You listen to Paul McCartney? Yeah, I do. I personally love any music that was made before 2016. The quality of music has dropped since then. This isn't an unpopular opinion, but I would actually argue music has gotten a little bit better in the last few years in comparison to like 2018-19. I found those were really bad years for music, but I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with me on that. But again, I couldn't find a song today that could hold a torch against any song from the 80s. Don't forget Wang Chung. Wang Chung's my favorite band. I don't care what people say. I thought they made some great music. Queen is really cool. I just don't find it really fits in with a lot of the other songs. Like, I listen to Queen songs, but I don't find you can put it into a playlist with music from other artists, and I don't find it blends very well together. But that's not to put it down. It is. They are all works of art. Favorite 80s band for me would be Queen. As for other music, long as I gave him movie tracks. Heath is in the house. Rush makes good songs. Yeah, I like Rush. Van Halen. Yeah, absolutely. Same with David Lee Roth. Do you have any broad? Are you talking about a woman? Phil Collins. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of one of my favorite recurring jokes in a show called The Trailer Park Boys. The main character is Phil Collins, so they always call him Susudio. Swayze Express. I want to rebuild the Swayze Express in HO scale. I think that would be a terrific addition to the collection. Do you have any Broadway limited locomotives? A couple of them. I saw Guns N' Roses a couple years ago. That must have been awesome. I think the coolest band I ever saw was America. That was pretty awesome. Now let's see. Opinions on Johnny Cash made great music. Yeah, I recently found this song. This is kind of a lesser-known artist, I think, but yeah, I've been listening to this one lately. "Ride" by Joe Centauri. I don't know if anybody knows about that guy, but makes pretty good stuff. These are all good. You know, I got like Fix and Aerosmith. Bryan Adams, got a Canadian one in there. All just gold and stuff. SMT, a Lionel Marks or American Flyer transformer should be able to provide 16 volts to 20 volt AC source for the Trix Twin Railway Controller. Okay, I really appreciate that, Peter. Satrianery. I can't pronounce that. There's a funny video called Pippo's UMA hype speech that had Phil Collins in the air tonight playing in the background. I can never listen to this song with a straight face again. I find that can happen to certain songs. Like, I quite like Huey Lewis in the News, but I also saw the movie American Psycho, and if you watch the movie and then you listen to Hip to Be Square afterwards, you can't unsee the scene from the movie. You know what I mean? Do you think $60 is a good price for a Lionel GS4? My hobby shop is selling one, and I want to know if it's a good price. For a HO scale one, I'd be very cautious because those were the exact same drives as Bachmann, and those are quite unreliable. So if it runs really well, maybe, but I don't know. $50 is a lot for one of those. If you're talking about an O-scale model, though, that's a steal. Definitely buy it. Devo, yeah, they made some good stuff. The Eagles, yeah, the Eagles made some nice stuff. Take It Easy, I liked that one. Have you ever watched Smokey and Bandit? I've never seen Smokey and Bandit, but I have listened to Eastbound and Down quite a few times. That was the song they actually used in the Microsoft Train Simulator police video, where you had CSX locomotives hauling Bud Light and police engines chasing them down. It's a really weird video, but I loved it as a kid. Smokey and Bandit is a classic. SMT, will there ever be an official Discord server? There is an official Discord server. I don't know if anybody has a link to it, because I'm not actually the manager, but it does exist. An O-scale GS4 for $60, go for it. If it doesn't run, you can fix it. Yeah, if it's an O-scale GS4, that's a steal. Those things are worth hundreds of dollars. But I'm guessing it's one of the Lionel HO ones, which are not worth a lot of money. Huey Lewis in news, if you watch in Back to the Future, then it hit you. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a much more positive image. Back to the Future was great. Every Breath You Take. Oh, yeah, by the Police. That's a good one. And you run the Krauss Mafia hydraulic locomotive. I don't see why not. I have an Athearn Blue Box GP90, and it runs great, but it leans to one side, and I don't know how to fix it. Any advice? Make sure it's seated correctly into the frame, and that the trucks haven't been bent, because if it was dropped, the truck might be a little misshapen. So I just disassemble it and just check to see if everything's even. I got scammed $90 for a daylight with a chipped wheel. I didn't even know the wheel was chipped. Yeah, so old Bachmann ones. You see a lot of people paying a lot of money for those. They're not worth it, so you have to be careful. Do you come from the land down under? Yeah, that was a good song. Who was that by? Come to the land down under. I can't remember the artist. Recently repaired a Tyndall whistle on a 1950 O-gauge steam engine. It needed to be rewired. Can we see some of your British stuff? Well, most recently, I acquired all of this. I acquired all of this stuff, a whole bunch of British locomotives, so that's going to be a future project. But as for some of the things my grandmother had as a child, yeah, there was like this thing right here. It's not in good shape. It is missing a lot of parts, but I'm thinking a lot of the parts might still be around, because Men at Work, yeah, that's the artist. I'm thinking a lot of the parts might still be around. So luckily, even though these engines got broken when she was a kid, she saved all the parts. See, we got all these. Like, those wheels might be the ones for it. Got all sorts of other bits and pieces in there. All part of the Trix Twin Railway, so it's not hopeless. The question is whether or not that engine has a good motor or not, because that might be hard to replace. You see the Lionel stuff, yeah. Let's shorten that tripod here, that way I can actually get a bit of a closer shot. I got It's all just 50s stuff. Got the AEC uranium car, which actually has fluid flowing around inside. It's a pretty funky piece of equipment. And yeah, my Lionel engine. I've actually got two. I've got this one and the Scout there. There's a couple old Marks engines in there too. And all this tin plate stuff also by Marks. And this brand new one sent in by Daisy to G scale. So that's about it. I always kind of laugh when I see the uranium car though, because it always reminds me, I bought it the same day that I went over to a buddy's house, and we were shooting the breeze, right? And he was telling me the story about how he used to work at the city dump, and I guess they would have to x-ray the ground to make sure there wasn't like space underneath or something, but they had this device, this x-ray machine. It was really dangerous. You weren't supposed to go near it because it was like radioactive or something. So anyways, his boss owned this thing, and he was supposed to keep it in a certain spot, and he used to drive around with it in this rusted out van. And one day he got into a bit of a car crash, and the machine actually caught on fire. He had to extinguish the fire himself. He did, with a broken leg, so I have to give him credit. But for some reason, the way he described that story, I was just like, oh my god, what a disaster. Video killed the radio star. Yeah, by Bugs? Is that it? My school janitor gave me his classic 80s Lionel train set last year. It's so rare it even has sounds. That's pretty impressive for the 80s. The Buggles, I think. Yeah, that's it. Do you still have the... Oh my goodness, I can't believe somebody just mentioned this. Do you still have the Trying Davy Crockett? Well. As of today, that project might be back on track. So it's amazing that one engine is... I don't think I've ever got more comments about something. And yeah, today I decided to dig it out of storage and see if I could find some parts. Unfortunately, the frame has re-cracked, so that's going to be a problem. However, there is some good news for it, which is that this guy named Max sent in some drivers, so we've got those. Unfortunately, there's no eccentric screw, so I found these, which seem to thread into the original thread, so that's good. We got some bearings, which we'll have to use there. So we've got enough to at least get the engine turning. But on the bad news side, we have a really stripped gear, so I don't know if that's going to work anymore. It's probably the reason somebody took this engine apart. So I've got this, which might be its motor, but I don't think the teeth really match. Alright, I can't do this one-handed. Let me just get my tripod to a better height. Yeah, so this is the closest worm gear I could find, but it's definitely not the original. And you can see it does work, but there are little fragments flying off, so I'm not sure if the teeth are the wrong size or if it's just because I'm holding it at a funny angle. Either way, that's going to be a problem. I also need to figure out a way to mount the motor over the drive and to get it to fit inside the shell. So the project's still very challenging, but there is now a little bit of hope. So I'll try to do that. This engine never had pistons. Or if I can find the shell, I'll show you what they did. I might need a light just to see if I can find this thing. I thought it was being stored on this level, but it might be a bit lower. It's not there. I didn't decide to move the shell somewhere. That would have been dumb. I think they put pistons, like fake ones on the side, so it would look like it had proper ones, but these were not realistic engines by any means. I don't think I have the shell around here. Probably not, so I'm gonna have to go looking for that too, but at least we got the drive. Go down 2 shelves. Somebody see it? I mean, ultimately, what this is a organizational issue. Heath, are you still here? Harrison hasn't done the unboxing. Do you see how easily the track takes a left turn? Probably early to ask, but have you thought about a fundraiser for Christmas this year? Not in particular. If anybody has a suggestion for what we should be fundraising for, I'd be happy to hear it. Usually I'd choose the International Food Bank just because it's, you know, it serves every country, which I think is nice. But, yeah, if you guys have any suggestions for me, I'd love to do it, because I'll probably do another fundraiser. It's kind of turning into a bit of a tradition, which is good. It's one of the best things I think YouTube has ever added to the site, which is the ability to fundraise, because they actually take care of all of the transaction fees. So 100% of the money which is donated actually does get to the charity, which I think is really honorable of them. I wonder if it's up here. Nope, not up here. I probably put it into storage. Presents for homeless kids. That's a very good suggestion. Definitely, I'd have to look into it, but maybe Toys for Tots would be a good one. The only thing that I want to be kind of careful about with that sort of stuff is that there's not like political affiliation, because I know that some charities have found themselves in controversy, and that's obviously not something I want to be part of. But any really good wholesome charity, you know, like Salvation Army, something like that, I'd probably be pretty happy to help them out. Raise some money by selling some fish and chips there. Do you have an HO scale Polar Express? I cannot say I do. My job does the Toys for Tots, a lot of terminals. That's nice. That was for Health and Humanity Junction. Harrison, inside joke. You need to stop by his live streams. I think I have seen some of the Heaths, but yeah, I should watch more of those. Do you have the Harry Potter train? No, I don't have that one. Do the buildings have lights? Yes, they do. I just usually turn them off to save energy. I'm kidding about that. I just don't want to burn the lights out of them. My dad used to operate locomotives at the DeBruce grain elevator in Texas. I believe it was a GP7. Here in a mixed freight train. I think I better finish off the live stream because it's almost 11. There's some people upstairs who probably want to go to sleep, but maybe we'll run one more. Heath has pretty much made unboxings in art format at this point. Well, now I'm really intrigued. I better have a look. Face reveal. Well, there's no secret. Hi. I have an Athearn Blue Box BC Rail -9 dummy. Any advice on how to power it up? Yeah, you find a junked engine, which is not worth saving, and you steal the motor, gears, and everything else you need off it, because you're going to need metal wheels, bearings, gears, drive shaft, and a motor. Once you have all those things, it should be good. It's not an art form, it's just stalling for an hour and then opening it. Well, I can't speak for Heath's videos because I haven't seen those ones, but the thing is that, yeah, I don't know, there has been some people who have been saying, oh, yeah, I had too much buildup, so my recent unboxings, I try to just get right to opening up the boxes. That way there's none of that waiting around. Hey, it's Auto Model Railfan. Justin, how have you been doing? Somebody wanted a high hood locomotive. I guess we could run like this. And look at the Frisco. I've been good. How have things been with you? They're going all right, thank you. SMT, have you ever purposely broken a locomotive? There was one time I got a Bachmann Gandy dancer for $2 and it didn't work. The motor was fried, so I decided to have some fun with it, and I threw a Athearn motor on top of it. Anyway, it destroyed the engine, so that wasn't too much fun. But I've never, I don't think, just destroyed one for the sake of it. Yeah, now we're talking about Harrison. Welcome to the Club Frisco. Now that we're talking about it, welcome to the Club Frisco. Is that a reference to a Michael Jackson song? I flushed an MU2 motor with alcohol. It wasn't fully drained out. When I went to test it, it burst into flames. Yeah, you have to be careful doing that. I actually had a motor start a fire once in a similar way. It was, yeah, it was an engine. The motor was actually seized. It had grease, and I kept throwing alcohol on the bearings just to try to get it to unseize. Kept putting more. It started turning, and then the whole thing just caught fire in my hands. So, yeah, that's something you have to watch out for. Addams Family. That's a good movie. Do you watch Virtual Railfan? I've seen their stuff. It's all right. Can you please run that very long Santa Fe engine? Maybe on the next stream. I think I'll finish this one off because we're almost at 11. You know what, whatever, let's do it. Oh, Liam, welcome to the live stream. How are you doing? What's your opinion about Harley Davidson? Not crazy into motorcycles, but some of their history is interesting. There's this YouTube channel I watch, Bikes and Beards, and they do some pretty interesting stuff with the old Harleys. Do you have any tips on fixing gear slip? Yeah, if you have a gear which is slipping around a point, usually just putting a bit of crazy glue will fix it. All right, final one. All right, well, that's going to be the final train of the night. I'd like to thank you all so much for joining in this evening. It's been a lot of fun running trains with all of you and chatting. And I hope you all have a great night. See you all in the next one.